Hello, welcome, my name is Michal and this is my channel Golden Blue Spiral, the gateway to the beauties of the unity consciousness and unconditional love. Today we will be exploring one of the most exciting understandings that the Sassani extraterrestrials share with us, which is how the space-time itself works, the structure, and how we can utilize it to our benefit and how we can totally transform our life. So let's just dive into it. If you have seen one of my previous videos, I shared with you some of the self-sabotaging beliefs that can really hurt you and that can keep you locked in the victim mode. And this session is a very powerful one because if you really understand what I'm sharing with you today, then it will help you to unlock from at least 5 of them. So let's see what's going on here. Maybe you are familiar with this statement, which is everything is here and now. Especially in the spiritual community, this is a very common phrase. And also Sassani claimed that everything is here and now is actually one of the fundamental laws of the structure of existence of the universe. So let's take a look at what they mean. Before I move to the space-time though, let me begin with an analogy that will help you understand the concept on something a little bit more familiar to you, and that's a regular video. Because you probably know that a video is nothing else than a series of small, tiny frames that are so similar to one another that when you actually project through them fast enough, it looks like it's moving. And this is how we create an illusion of time and motion in the video industry, in the movies. However, all the frames exist at the same time and you have access to the entire movie, and nothing is stopping you from going backwards if you wish, forward, jump between the frames back and forth. However, you probably want to enjoy the movie in a logical way as it unfolds. Therefore, you just choose to project the frames one by one linearly in a constant rate. So it is nice and enjoyable. And there is also an expression which is called frames per second, which basically means only how many pictures per second are projected on the screen. Now we finally get to the space-time, and according to the Sassani ETs, it is very similar to the movie because they say that each now moment is a completely separate universe, which is like the snapshot or the frame in the movie. And each of these can be called a parallel reality. It doesn't move and it's stationary. However, our consciousness then shifts billions upon billions of times per second from one version of the universe to another, and then it creates the illusion of time and the motion. Now, which frame you experience is determined by the frequency of our consciousness. And what you put out is what you get back. That's another of the laws of the structure of the universe that they refer to. And past and future is all about probabilities. And this is very well aligned also with the findings in quantum physics and entanglement of particles and all of that area. Now let's explore what are timelines. But to be able to do that, I first need to describe what you see in front of you. Because see, the timelines and the space-time is not a 3D thing, it's a multidimensional concept, and we don't have honestly the tools to even imagine it accurately. But for the sake of this video, oversimplified, let's use this. First, we have this kind of two-dimensional film strip. So kind of one line would be the regular film strip that you are familiar with. But also it goes vertically And this is represented by the colors which correspond to the Hawkins scale. The Hawkins scale probably could be a video completely on its own because it is very useful and interesting thing. But for the sake of this video, I will just stick to the basics. Basically, it's just like a rainbow. When on the lower end, you have the low vibration, low frequency of the light. On the higher end, you have the, let's say, violet or ultraviolet as the high frequency of the light. And also there are corresponding emotions, where on the lower end you have like grief, fear, apathy, shame. And on the higher end you have like the peace, joy, love, acceptance, willingness, and so on. There is also this point of neutrality, which is courage. Courage to change something, courage to explore new perspectives. And then we have now, which is the current moment. Then we have some possible pasts, all those timelines that could lead to this now moment. And then all possible futures. Now, from all these possible pasts and futures, only some of them will be actually relevant. And what I mean by that is that when you incarnate on Earth or on any planet whatsoever, you choose a theme to explore. So for example, if you want to explore a water world, then it is probably not going to be relevant for you to become a particle of fire. And of course, for us humans right now, if you chose to be a human in this lifetime, you are probably not going to experience any other parallel realities where you are a dragon or so. So the themes for Earth right now are mostly transformation, healing, and emotional mastery. And then, from all these relevant paths, only some of them will be actually probable for you. Because this has to do a lot with your choices and your state of being, your wounds, your subconscious patterns, and all these things. Because, for example, even though I have the capacity to be a motivational speaker, if I am, for example, right now thinking about a suicide, it's probably not gonna happen a lot. However, now I need to get back to the idea that everything is here and now, and therefore what is really happening is that you are not creating the now from the past, but you are creating the illusion of the past from the now. You are always here and now, just shifting kind of the focus into a different time frame, but then you always create kind of this tree of all possible paths that could lead up to the present moment, and then all possible futures that could kind of follow up on that moment. And one of them will sort of look like it's manifesting. So it is not really manifesting, it's just again like the memory of it, like this makes sense to you that it could happen before, and thanks to our memory we assume that this is what happened. Just like in the movie, you remember all the previous frames, but you could also cut it and completely change the previous portion of it that would lead to the same conclusion here and now. So again, if I go back to the possible, relevant, and probable, you can imagine this as a model of the eye, where the white part would be kind of the set of all possible things that can happen. Then inside of it would be only that which is relevant for you. Therefore, you will never experience anything outside of it, even though it's possible. And then inside of that is whatever is probable for you. And then, just like you have your eye, there will be one actual reality that is going to come into your focus and that you are going to experience. And if you remember, in one of my previous videos, I was talking about the ETs and where are they actually, why don't we see them? I was also saying the physics of the dimensions, where it works just like the tuning forks or the radio, or if you want a TV. The consciousness is the same principle, because you just switch the channel, switch the frequency, and then you experience a different show. So if we apply this in practice, let's take a look at an example. Imagine that you are over here in the lower end of the vibrational spectrum, let's say wounded, that you maybe don't feel that you are good enough and that you don't deserve something. And then if you look at all your relevant past timelines, you will actually resonate with those timelines where you were maybe mistreated, people hurt you and didn't respect you as well. And generally any imaginable way that would explain how you got into this situation. However, as you can see, all the other options are still there and still available. They are just unchosen. So, if you manage to stop identifying with this particular version of your past as the root source of your problems today, then you can sort of undo it, forget about it, and then you can shift your vibration here and now into a more positive range. And nothing except your belief system and your choices is stopping you from doing that. And this shift is what we call healing here and now. And healing is basically an alignment with who you really are. Because if you look at the range, this is where you operate as a source being, as a multidimensional being in the upper scale, or I would say in the entire range, but mostly in the upper range of this vibrational scale. So the more you manage to go up into the vibration, the closer you get to the source and the more aligned you are with who you really are, and the more abundant and positive life you can lead. And from there, once you are there, you can create a completely new illusion of your past that is more empowering and more supportive of who you choose to be. And for example, imagine that you are dealing with addiction, something what a lot of people struggle with because, they have all this momentum of problems that are just accumulating and now it's making almost impossible for them to change. If you really understand this and if you really heal here and now, you can really shift into a version of Earth in which you have never been addicted to anything in the first place. Now, how cool is that? And how freeing and empowering is that? And this is what the ETs and the Ascended Masters mean when they are saying that the history is malleable and it depends on which version you are focusing on. It also explains, if you have, for example, different channels, how it is possible that they can be channeling completely contradicting information, even though that you know that they are trustworthy, or that at least they used to be trustworthy for you in the past. And it can still be true. It just depends into which timeline they are tuning in. So as you can see here, one channel can say, hey, everything is positive, everything is beautiful. And another channel say, no, we are actually going into a war. See, it's all coexisting at the same time, different TV shows. And just a joke on side is, I also suspect that something like that is happening, for example, when I look into a fridge and I'm looking for something and it's not there, and then my wife comes and suddenly it's right there where I was looking and it wasn't there before, I could swear. But she just looks and just has a huge face palm, it's right here. Or for example, the socks, you put 2 into a washing machine, then you go back in and there is only 1. So who knows what everything is in play over here. And also, if you are, for example, familiar with past life regression therapy or hypnotherapy as it's called as well, then this is the mechanics, how it technically works. Because even though they say that some past was influencing you until now, and then you go into the past and heal it, and then suddenly you are good here and now, what is really happening is that you actually go into the past, into the moment which is resonating with you, where the problem is more obvious for you. You can imagine it in a different way, and you are not so much attached to the beliefs of the current lifetime. You can imagine, yeah, in that lifetime that was possible. Then you just rewrite the scenario that it happened differently. So kind of you pretend to move from here over here into the higher spectrum again of the vibration, which effectively then heals you here and now, because the wound is healed. You shift and then you actually create the new version of the past. Even though it was just imaginary, it doesn't matter, it works. And one more example of this would be the Mandela effect. This is when masses of people believe an event occurred when it didn't. And just in case you are not familiar, then this is basically saying that there are people, and a lot of them, who remember that the President Nelson Mandela died in 1980s, but in fact, according to the current history, he was living until 2013. And so this is just another way how you can experience this happening in your life. Because in one parallel reality, Mandela died in 1980s. In another parallel reality, Mandela died much later. And in here, there is a different concept that is also in play, which is that the timelines can also overlap, and therefore you can have your own timeline and experience, let's say very positive, and then you can also see other people having their own experience and being on their timeline, and they can be totally negative. Especially now in the times of COVID, you can see this huge range of experiences, and it can seem like some other people are literally living on a different earth, and they do. It's exactly like that, at least according to the extraterrestrials who are explaining this to me. We will be talking about this much deeper in one of the following videos, and the topic will be the splitting prism of the parallel realities, and it will be also connected to the times in which we are in right now. So for now, the coolest thing about this is that you do not need to change others for you to be happy. And I can't emphasize that enough. No need to fight or no need to make others agree with you. You can just shift by yourself wherever you want to be, and then the rest will come. And here's what Bashar said about that. He said, you never change the world you are in. You change yourself, the vibration of yourself, from within, and then you shift into a parallel version, an alternative version of Earth that is already more representative of your new state of being, including the collective consciousness, including the Earth, the people, your friends. It will look like it is still the same people, but it will be a different version of them, different parallel reality. So no need to fight anymore. Now, let me stop here for a moment, however, because there probably will be some people who will think, oh, this is just bullshit, because you are just saying that I can meditate and do nothing and then everything will somehow happen without anybody doing anything. That's not how it works. And I'm saying, yeah, that's not how it works, and that's not what we are saying, because what we are missing here is basically how the conscious creation actually works. It's a huge topic, and there will be a completely separate video on that topic probably, and how it is different between unconscious creation, kind of the creation on autopilot by default, and the conscious creation when you are actually utilizing all the information that you have available to your advantage. So physical action is the language of physical reality, and therefore it is an important part of the equation, which then yields the final frequency that determines which timeline you choose. So the only thing that we are saying is that it doesn't make sense to fight and to invalidate and to try to control others, because it doesn't matter. you can be happy even without them. You don't need their approval, and you will never have under control what other people choose to feel, think, or do, just like they will never have under control what you choose to do. So don't put yourself into that trap when you would become angry and desperate just because somebody else chooses to be themselves instead of what you want them to be. Right? So I hope this makes sense at least a little bit. So the linearity of the time, that's just an illusion. And if you think about it, what is stopping you from tapping into other dimensions, into other parallel realities, into other frames? And that's exactly how time travel and teleportation works. And another relevant thing is, do you remember the Hawkins scale? And the fact that if you are experiencing the lower emotions and the lower state of being, that you are contracting, and that the more you are going towards the love and joy, the more you're expanding. This also correlates to the idea of how many parallel realities and other timelines you can actually perceive. So if you imagine that you are really well aligned with your higher self, with your multidimensional self, then your capacity to perceive the other options, the other parallel realities is expanded immensely. You can tap into other lifetimes, you can tap into other beings telepathically. All these psychic abilities unlock for you. And you can also feel much more compassion, because not only you can perceive what you experience over here, but you can also perceive what other beings are experiencing over down here. And then if you are actually lowering your vibration, then also you are contracting and you are shrinking your visibility, your field of perception. And in the end, where you are really low, you can see nothing else but your own one parallel reality at a time. And of course, it works the other way around as well. So this is where we are now, this stage of expanding our consciousness, expanding our awareness, healing and aligning ourselves and transformation. All this is what we are going through now. And the interesting thing on that is that if you are expanding your consciousness, you don't see only the positive things. You can also start seeing all the negative things that were all the time over there, hidden, but now you suddenly see them clearly and they cannot hide anymore. And this is also what is happening right now around the pandemic situation, and all the things that were there kind of pulling the strings are now becoming very visible and you can see them. And it is just so you can also deal with them in the preferable way. You can heal it. Otherwise, how can you heal something that you are not even aware of, right? So it is all very exciting for me, and I hope for you as well. And here is the thing, that all these beings, including us, exist simultaneously as well, right? So a person who is in the lower vibrational state, they will see only the misery, only the bad things. They will not see any of that you can perceive over here when you are in the positive vibrations. So if you are looking at the emotional scale, for example, acceptance and unconditional love can have very similar symptoms as apathy. But it is a completely different state of being. When in apathy you do not care at all because you give up. But in the unconditional love, it looks like you don't care, but in fact, you are actually allowing people to have their own experience because you understand what they are going through. You have been there, you have done that, and you know that it can be done better. It can be transcended. It is just a temporary, it is just an illusion. But you don't want to rob them of their experience, of their lesson. You don't want to do their homework. So this is also what can be happening. And then for the people who are over here, you cannot show them what you see. they have to first go up by themselves so they can perceive what you see as well. And the best way, because again, you cannot force anybody to see something they are not ready for, or you cannot show them, then how you can really influence them is to lead by example and to demonstrate what else is possible, to show them that, look, it works for me. And without any expectations, without any judgment, if you so choose, you can try that and maybe it will work for you too. But if you don't, then I'm still okay, right? So this is how you can inspire people and just pull them and show them that it is possible to do so, to give them the confidence that it is possible by them seeing that it is working for you, because they will never try it by themselves because for them it's just bullshit. But when they actually see that it is working for you, then that's how they can also get a chance to change by themselves. And one of the valid ways how the people in the low vibrations who feel stuck there can actually go up is when they get really exhausted from all those battles and they get literally sick and tired of being sick and tired, and then they just go through the crisis which forces them to go up. That's kind of the situations like when you don't want to take care of yourself, really are sacrificing yourself for everybody else, and then you burn out, and then you have to basically take care of yourself, and you start looking, okay, what else is there for me, what other choices I have, because all the things I've tried just don't work anymore. And you open up and you transform naturally. So even crisis can be used in a positive way if you allow it to be so. So if we start reviewing, in the old paradigm understanding, how it works was that something bad happened and then it kept happening over and over, and since I cannot change the past, then this is why I cannot feel good. This is how I am, and I'm in the victim mode right now. And because this is how it happened every single time before, then this is the only way how it can happen in the future as well. And then we are in the loop of just repeating the same mistakes and patterns over and over without being willing to try something new and to get out of the loop. And now let's take a look at the new paradigm and what we can do as the creators of our reality. So when we understand that everything is happening here and now, and that we generate the illusion of the past and the future from here and now just so it is in resonance with our current state of being, we can also switch the flow of influence. We can consciously choose what we want to be influenced by. So instead of being influenced by the past until now, we can, for example, just connect to the future timeline where something good will happen. And then you just explore that timeline. How does it feel? And what would I do in this timeline? So really imagine, how do I act? What words I use? What choices I make? And then when you try to mimic, to generate the feelings and actions inspired by the future here and now, that's how you actually shift in the frequency here and now, and then you create the new timelines that actually lead to the optimal preferred state of being in the future. And this is what we are learning now as well, that it is possible to do so, that we don't need to be influenced by the past to generate the future. We can also be influenced by the future and generate the past as well. I think that this is very cool thing to play and experiment with. I definitely have a lot of fun with it, and it works. It really works. Now, for the more geeky folks, let's take a look at some numbers. So, the time to shift between parallel realities, the actual time, is, according to extraterrestrials, the Planck time. We already know this number. And therefore, you really shift 1.855 up to the 43rd power times per second. That's a huge number of parallel realities that you shift through. That's the frame rate of the experience. Now this includes your entire persona, basically also the spirit world, your higher self, and all of that. The physical reality, on the other hand, our perception in the third density is only about 60 frames per second. So as you can see, it's nothing compared to the billions and billions of frames per second for the real experience, and we are missing a lot. And as we are now, again, raising our awareness and our vibration, and we are sort of ascending from the third density to the fourth density, one of the effects it will have is that it's going to also allow us to perceive more. We are going to increase our perception to about 300 frames per second. And some individuals even like 1000 frames per second. So you can imagine just how much you will see more. Even if it was just doubled, you would suddenly feel much more than before. And that's what is happening right now as well, if you think about it. All these ascension symptoms, when we are suddenly feeling things that we never felt before, this is just that we start having access to the things that were sort of hidden or filtered out for us before, and now we are being exposed to it as we are expanding the awareness and becoming aware of more and more and more. So this is exciting because, again, you will have much more capabilities to play with. And finally, let's review what we have learned today. First, everything is here and now. Linearity of time is an illusion. Then we learned that past is malleable and that you can drive your experience from the future instead of from the past. That you are never a victim of your past. You have always infinite possibilities, and that you are limited only by what is relevant for you. And you are the creator of your experience, including co-creation, which will be explored in a different video. You don't need to change others, you don't need to fight and all of that, and you have everything in your hands, in your control. And that's it for today. So congratulations, you made it to the end. And if you want to support me, you can check out the goldenbluespiral.love/how can you support me and see if you want me to create more free content like this so more people can learn all these empowering tools. I am so grateful that you found the time for reviewing this material. I know that it is a completely new perspective, very different from the traditional narrative. However, even from my own perspective and experience, I can confirm that this works like magic once you get all the dots together and once you see the bigger picture. For us, we will need to actually go through much more videos so you can get all the other dots that I didn't mention yet. But I promise that it will all make sense in the end of it as well. In the next video, I will probably be speaking about the splitting prism of the parallel realities and how exactly it can work that multiple seemingly contradicting truths can be present and true at the same time, and how you can see them and how you can choose to not be influenced by them and how you can choose your path going forward and manifest the beautiful world you want to live in. So thank you. My name is Michal, and just enjoy your life. My unconditional love to you. Bye bye.